There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
Hey you guys, it's Tuesday again and it's time for episode 126. Now this was just requested like a couple of weeks ago and I didn't even have it on my list for whatever reason. And then like somebody said, hey, why don't you do a show about Son of Sam? I see you did one on the Zodiac. And I was like, oh, duh, why don't we do one on Son of Sam?
Yeah.
Because I don't even know why I didn't think of it, because I have like millions of other serial killers on the list, but for some reason, not this one.
When we started this show, we wanted to do stuff that was kind of off the beaten path.
True.
That was really how you competed when you were a new channel, is to do things that other people weren't doing.
Yeah.
And now that we're more established, we can go back and do real common cases like Son of Sam. Everyone really should know about this case.
Yeah,
Really?
This seems like a very, very common case. And there's a shit ton of like documentaries about it. There were like movies about it, songs about it, all kind of
Well,
crap.
it could be that I'm taking it for granted, also because of our age. There's a lot of younger people that may not know who the hell Son of Sam is.
Yeah, because this, I mean,
Or
I'm
in
not
other countries.
I'm not from New York City, but
Yeah.
I mean, in New York City, this was like a big deal, like in the late 70s. And, the whole city was like, terrorized and all this
Son
other
of
kind
Sam
stuff.
even showed up in Cypress Hill lyrics.
Yeah,
Remember Cypress Hill?
Yeah, there's
That
been a lot
rap
of
band?
lot of songs.
Yeah.
Even though I should say, according to Wikipedia, the song "Psycho Killer" by the Talking Heads, which everybody thought was about David Berkowitz, apparently is not about David Berkowitz. But there were a bunch of other ones that were about him.
Yeah.
Now, there's also, we kind of want to cover too, because I feel like there's kind of a big controversy about whether David Berkowitz acted alone or whether he was part of some extended cult like he wasn't, because there was like a lot of shit about some people that were witnesses to some of the crimes and they saw different people and different color hair and like different builds and stuff like that. So, and then later on, like he kind of said some shit about, I'm in a cult, there was a whole bunch of us and I only did 3 of them and blah 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 and all this other kind of stuff. So we'll sort of get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, it's not a real complicated case. We're just going to do an overview. It'll probably last about an hour, the show.
Well,
We'll see.
Like I said, I'm not putting limits on shit anymore. If it ends up being an hour, fine. If it ends up being 2 hours, fine. It's like,
Okay.
I know that a lot of people have contacted me and say they like the longer format. We didn't really intend for them to go longer. We just kind of said, fuck it. We're just going to not worry about how long it is. So sometimes we don't pay attention. So sometimes they go 2 hours, 2 hours, 20 minutes. And we're like, holy crap, we didn't really mean to go on and on that long. Especially like when we go off on tangents and whatnot. So, like I said, some of them might be longer, some of them might be shorter. We're not like,
Okay, it's on you then. You can do it as long as you want to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just here for a ride. I would think this one probably wouldn't take that long. But actually, just me talking about it actually just lengthened the show, didn't it?
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I know.
It's like a big.
I know. I'm not firing on all cylinders yet. I just started drinking.
Well, we just
I
started
woke
drinking.
up this morning with just like a bad headache. Cat woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
She'll do that.
Didn't feel right all day. Running around on me, jumping on my chest.
Yeah, she does that to me pretty much every morning.
Yeah, she did. You giggled.
Yeah, well, because
You
I'm
giggled
used
when
to
that shit
it.
happened. Yeah.
I'm used to it.
Yeah,
She
it
does
was-
that every morning right around 4
Yeah.
a.m. She decides, and look, she just came in the room.
Just
She
came in
knew
the
we
room.
were talking
Yeah.
about her. But yeah,
must have
right
heard my
right
name.
around 4 a.m. It's usually between 4 and 5 a.m. She will come in and go, hey, mommy, and she'll
Yeah.
start like kneading like on my shoulder. Like I've taken to sleeping with a pillow there just so she doesn't claw me. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, because she loves to just knead at this one particular spot. And then she'll go, like, climb up on my chest and, like, lay there and purr and shit like that. Stick her little whiskers in my face. It's just funny.
Audiobooks selling like crazy.
I'm amazed.
Yeah, part 2 is actually retroactively selling part 1, which I got the soundproofing done for
The
the
soundproofing, it's in the closet right
Yeah.
there behind you. If
Turn
you're
the
watching
closet
the video.
into a sound.
It's now a soundproof.
It's now a sound booth. All right.
Has all the
Yeah.
foam all around
Yeah, I
it.
had to
and
order all the
everything.
foam and
It's
did it.
kick-ass.
Had to make some little false walls in the back, so she's got a little phone booth size thing. She could stand there, put a shelf in there, so she could put her laptop and the microphones. So it should turn out real well. We're gonna calibrate the microphone and see what kind of background signature we can get in there. I could probably even insulate it even more if I have to.
Yeah, we got extra foam.
But this will allow us to record a lot better than actually part 2 was to pretty good standards. I think this will be at least that or better.
Because I had kind of a quasi soundproof booth.
Yeah,
we had like blankets and quilts and shit like that, like stuff
up on the inside and everything.
So that one came out sounding pretty good.
Yeah.
But I want to redo.
We're gonna redo part 1,
volume 1. With the new setup.
Now we're gonna do Unseen Hand.
And then I want to do some of my fiction.
Then the fiction will come.
And
then we'll go back and touch up the Steve Merrill books, and then we'll probably do Mammoth Mountain.
Because I mean,
and we're gonna come out with an updated Mammoth Mountain with some newer stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna add more stuff because it was kind of longer. It was kind of a short book. It wasn't horribly short. I think it was like 170 pages or something like that. But we wanted to add more to it because it was kind of more to it, and he remembered some more stuff, and we were
a smaller operation back then.
That was my first one. That was our first, really.
So we could actually do
a lot. Nonfiction.
We could actually do a lot better job on a second edition of that.
Yeah.
So you guys are going to like it.
That's what, So like I said, over the next year, the next upcoming months, I'm going to like redo a lot of the audiobooks. I'm going to put a bunch of my fiction on audiobook, which it's never been before. I might like do a second edition where I like, change out the covers, like modernize the covers and whatnot. And then I got to do Faceless Villain Volume 3, which I'm hoping will be out by fall of 2019. That's what I'm shooting for. Right. We'll see how that goes. Like I said, I've got it all outlined and everything.
Everybody's just, they really want part 3 to come out of Faceless Villain. We can get it out, but we got to go back and touch up the old catalog.
Yeah.
It's just complaints on the audio quality. It's just
not
really,
a lot, but some of the audio is it's passable, but it's not
great. Not great.
It could be a lot better. Because I didn't really have anything to, I didn't have all the shit.
And as Jenny's making these new customers, because part 2's out, it's now a series, so people are buying part 1 and part 2. Because we're making these new customers, we got to touch up the shit that we did in the past.
Yeah, because I want them all to be...
That way, because we don't want to lose customers, basically.
Yeah, I want them all to be, like, the same.
They all got to be the same standard.
That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to, like, do everything with my back catalog and get all that going. And then before I do any,
I would think we could get out a second edition part 1 within a couple months, and then maybe a second edition face Unseen Hand. That's probably about 4 months from now, maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see.
And then we'll get the we'll see, maybe even less.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna do the bring a whole bunch of fiction to market that you guys are gonna like, in a one-stop shop. Probably be 2 collections.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
And that way you can, that hasn't been available.
No, I've never done audiobook versions of that.
Yeah, of the fiction.
And a lot of the fiction's been out for a really long time.
Been out a long time, and it's cool. It's cool. I've read, it's pretty, it's kind of like Clive Barker-ish kind of.
Yeah. It's just, nonfiction is an easier sell. And I like, writing true crime. I like writing paranormal shit. So it just seemed like an easier, like a lot of people, if they don't know who you are, they're not going to buy your fiction because they don't know if it sucks or not.
Right.
I'm the same.
Yeah, nonfiction just sells a lot better. And another thing that we've experienced is how much better true crime sells versus paranormal. And there's a lot more.
It's a much wider audience.
It's a wider audience, and there's a lot more true crime fans out there, and a lot more cases that are out there. When you're dealing with paranormal, you have to weed through the hokey shit to find the cases that are kind of good.
Yeah.
And there's a limited amount of those. I always kind of wanted to do a UFO book, but there's just so much of that now,
Well, and the thing is, a lot of paranormal books are not good and bullshitty.
So you put out a good one and people don't buy it because all the rest of them suck.
Well, it's harder to, because you like guilt by association.
Right, guilt by association. Yeah.
But, that's why I wanted to do kind of like a serious one because there's really not a lot like that.
Yeah.
But so that'll be coming up. Also, if you are one of our patrons on Patreon, then you saw the post that I made earlier today. Or actually, it wasn't today. It's when we're recording this. It was a couple days ago. I got a message from one of our patrons that was like, you guys don't really post anything on Patreon, and, maybe you should and stuff. And I was like, yeah, maybe we should. It's like, I always meant to, like, post more stuff on Patreon, like outtake videos or, like, just silly shit like that. And I just somehow never get around to it.
It's getting to the part where this operation where we almost need a damn secretary. She needs help. She's got so much stuff that she has to do. Really,
I'm so tired.
And it's stuff that I really can't help her with. I'm not really good at that kind of stuff,
While I was waiting for him to come in here and record the show,
Yeah.
I redesigned my
Right.
entire website. This is
Yeah,
how
I'm not a graphic designer, so I can't do it, But
I
it's
can't
almost,
just not do anything. I have to.
It's
always
almost
be
getting to
doing
the point where we're gonna have to hire somebody.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Although honestly, I was thinking about it the other day. I said even if I had the money to hire somebody, which I don't, but even if I did, I'd probably like up their ass all the time. Like, what are you doing? You're not doing that right.
Right, yeah.
Because what
Probably
I
wouldn't
mean.
work out.
I'm one of those like control freaky kind of
Part
people.
of it is that we're new.
Yeah.
And so we have to worry about back catalog too. You know what I mean? We're picking that up. If that was done right, you could just move forward. You wouldn't have to move backwards to clean up the technological issues we had with the old product.
Yeah, but I don't mind. It's
Once it's out of the way, it's
now that I know
done
what
and-
I'm doing.
Right. Yeah.
Because
Right.
I have to, honestly, it's like, I'm one of those kind of people, I don't like other people telling me what to do. I don't like having to learn things from other people. It's like, if I have to know how to do something, then I will learn to do it.
Right.
Myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to I don't trust anyone else to do anything.
Just the way the market is now in technology, we can be a self-contained unit.
Yeah.
It may take us time to get it right, but eventually we will. That's the kind of people we are. Other people probably just let it roll. But, I have a background in sales. I know that if you want to sell and you want to make money, you have to have a good product. If not, you won't have any brand loyalty. You won't have, won't have any customer loyalty. So,
I mean, and honestly, when I first started doing all this kind of shit, I didn't know anything about audio editing.
No,
I didn't know anything about video editing. I had to
No.
teach myself all of that.
learned it all as we went.
I just kind of figured it out as I went.
Or how to self-publish a book.
Yeah, I just
And
figured it all out.
how to target market books. Things like that,
I'm constantly stressed out, but like I said, I don't think I could farm it out to another person because I don't trust another person to do it correctly and do it on the timeline that I want it done on.
I'm used to juggling a bunch of different stuff at once. She's not really used to that.
I am. I just don't like it.
She puts herself under all the stress. I'm like, chill out, man. This stuff, it's coming out on
I can't
time.
chill out. I can't.
Yeah, she does great.
That's just my personality. Well, and I like the feeling of having everything done and everything being ahead of time. You know
what
I
we're
mean?
doing now is
I don't like last minute shit. I don't like it.
What we're doing now, that's going to take months. So just get used to it. Just get used to it.
I have this look at this, you guys. This
Yeah.
is my list. This is for this week. This is my list for things to do this week.
Yeah.
And I cross them off with little colored markers when they get finished. But yeah, that's just what my personality type is like.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of that, like I said, so in view of the Patreon thing, I really want to try and post more stuff on Patreon. I want to do more little couple minute videos, maybe like I said, outtake videos or more extra kitty videos, because we've started taking more videos of the kitty because you guys seem to like those kitty videos that I've been putting in the commercial break, and I
got one yesterday.
Yeah, you did. She was outside talking, but so we wanted to start doing that. I also want to maybe do, because you know how for the $20 plus patrons I've been doing a quarterly mail out where I mail free books or t-shirts or whatever. I want people on the lower tiers to also kind of maybe get in on that action. So I think what I might do is quarterly I might do a drawing. So I might do a random drawing from one of the other patrons and they'll get the same thing. I also want to start maybe doing early access because like I said, and I think I mentioned this in the Patreon post, that Thomm and I are all the shows are going to come out the same days, Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. But we're trying to up our production schedule. We're trying to record 2 shows at once, 3 shows at once, instead of leaving everything until the day before it's supposed to go up.
It jams up the schedule too much. We gotta do it like professional outfits do it, where you sit down for 3 days and just knock out 2 months worth of stuff. So it's in some ways I don't like because we can't keep as topical, but right, so things are gonna be delayed, but
it'll be much easier for me. So what we're doing is we're just gonna start for the podcast episodes, because we're longer, we're probably just gonna do 2 at once. So it'll be the next 2 weeks, and then movie reviews. I've already got the next 3 or 4 in the can.
Right.
So if you requested something and it seems like it's taking forever,
there's gonna be a delay.
That's probably why, because and like I said,
show's not gonna be as interactive.
Yeah, I
can't
mean,
be.
it still will.
Still
but,
would be in the comment section, but
yeah, I mean, we're still gonna check the comment section
Right.
and everything like that. But just for the, in the interest of my sanity and for me not having a nervous breakdown, we're gonna try and really like record more stuff while
Yeah.
we're sitting in here.
Oh, and I've been getting friend requests on Facebook. I've been accepting some of them. If you get accepted and you don't hear from me, don't be offended, man. I got thousands of people on my Facebook. I can't talk to everybody.
I'm almost to my limit, actually.
Yeah.
I try to like answer everybody, but I can't sometimes.
And we're busy not only with this stuff but other stuff that we have going on.
And sometimes, and I used to check Facebook every day, and now it's like every 3 or 4 days. Honestly, it's like I hate to say it, but I feel bad too. It's like friends that live around here, and it's like I feel like I haven't talked to them for like months and months. I'm like, they're like, "Are you mad at me or something?"
Our new recording schedule will actually free up a lot of her time to finish these audio books to clean up and the new stuff that's coming.
Yeah.
So we just have to do it this way.
Yeah,
There's
so
no
like I
choice.
said, since we're going to be doing some shows ahead of time, then that means I can post them early on Patreon, or I can at least like tell the patrons like what topics are coming up or what movies are coming up or whatever. So, I'm still kind of like working out the details, but that's probably what we're going to do this year. So hopefully that will all go well. The only other thing I was going to announce was, our last movie review, which was Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. We got a really good response on that. It seems like a lot of people are super into that movie. It wasn't just us. But yeah, so go check that out if you haven't already. And now, after all of that...
Yeah, we got that out of the way.
Let's start talking about Son of Sam.
The Son of Sam.
Otherwise known as David Berkowitz.
Yeah, incel.
Now... Yeah, well, here was something I didn't know until I started kind of looking into this. But, like, David Berkowitz, that was not the name he was born with because he was actually adopted.
Okay.
His mom, here's what happened. His mom was married to this guy named Tony Falco. And she, they were only married for a couple of years, and then he took off for some other woman. So the mom, whose name was Betty Broder... Then she started an affair with a married guy and got pregnant, presumably with the person who would end up being David Berkowitz.
Okay.
Now, no one is quite sure why she gave the baby up for adoption. Speculation is because this married guy was like, you can't have a baby and give it my last name.
Right.
So you just give it to somebody else. So she gave him up, and he was adopted by the Berkowitz family, they ran like a hardware store or something.
So it must have been back in the 50s.
Berkowitz was born in 1953.
Yes, that's another era.
Yeah.
So he was
actually born Richard David Falco.
Yeah.
That was the name that he had.
Actually kind of a cool name.
Yeah, but then when he was adopted, then the Berkowitz couple gave him, their name. So David Berkowitz is still alive, still in prison, serving several consecutive life sentences. He's actually come up for parole a couple of times, but he has stated he does not want parole, and a lot of times he does not show up for the hearings because he doesn't think he deserves to be let out, which, I think we can all agree with him on that.
They would never let him out.
I don't think they would let him out anyway, even if he did want to be let out.
Right.
But, I mean, here's the thing.
What would he do? He's unqualified to do anything.
Yeah, and honestly, I think early in 2018, he actually had a heart attack, and he needed heart surgery. But he has apparently recovered. I haven't heard that he's died or anything like that. So, but that was like a year ago that happened. So, he is formally credited with 6 murders and 7 attempted murders of 7 people that he shot and that didn't die. So here's the thing. So let's talk a little bit about, like I said, he was adopted. It's interesting how they didn't really notice anything super peculiar about him as a kid. He was kind of troubled, kind of a bully. He kind of like got in trouble for like petty shit. But nothing that got the law involved. You know what I mean? Like, now, it was bad enough that his parents did contact, like, a psychotherapist and go, like, what's the matter with him? Well, hey, baby.
Got a cat walking around. Okay.
You sticker little face, and please just don't walk across my little buttons, okay? But yeah, so it was nothing terrible, but it was enough that they thought something was the matter with him. You know what I mean? So, you know, there's that whole thing. And then when he was 17, he actually joined the army. And I believe he was infantry and served in the U.S. and in South Korea.
Okay.
And he was in for, you know, his 4 years or whatever. Now, after he got out, he actually looked for his birth mother and found her. And then the birth mother told him about him being illegitimate, which was a big deal in the 50s. You know what I mean? And apparently this was really like kind of a formative moment for him, because it felt like he always said that he felt like he didn't really have an identity, or you know what I mean? He just felt like he was apart from everyone for some reason.
It kind of sounds like old what's his name? The guy that other really big serial killer who was illegitimate, thought his mom was his sister. He's only the greatest one.
The greatest
one. What was that guy's name?
Ted Bundy?
Ted Bundy.
Was it
Ted Bundy kind of had that same kind of
I
personality
didn't know that.
profile. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a similar kind of thing. So, you know, from all the psychotherapists that have kind of looked into it and stuff like that, said this was kind of a big deal, like him finding out about the circumstances of his birth, and, you know, him being like, they called it like the primary crisis, like, of his life. Like, he felt like he didn't belong anywhere.
That's like Ted Bundy was
and
just
all,
like that.
Yeah, that type of thing. So he always felt like he was like apart from everyone.
Which was funny because, like, that was something from that era. There's a lot of guys that are born today from single mothers, you know, with, you know, kind of unknown backgrounds, and they don't end up like this. It wasn't as stigmatized.
Well, like I said, and we've talked about this on some of our other serial killer shows, I feel like the less stigma there is about that kind of shit, I think the better off we all are.
Yeah.
Because
doesn't affect the kid as much.
Right. You make a big deal about, oh, you're illegitimate. You make a big deal about the kid being gay. You make a big deal about something like, you make a big deal about it and you give the kid a fucking complex.
Give them a complex, and then they start acting in weird ways.
And then it messes them up. Like, it warps people's brains. And look how that shit happened. I mean, I'm not saying, like, if you know, got older, because he was in his early 20s when he found out. I mean, I don't know if he knew he was adopted. I think he did. But I don't think he knew about the whole, oh, my mom was having an affair with a married guy, and, like, you know, that's why she gave me up. But, you know, yeah, that would be traumatic to find out, particularly when you were in your 20s. But I feel like nowadays it wouldn't be as traumatic, like, so traumatic that it would turn you into a fucking serial killer.
Back then, you know, the society was very conformist. It was really cookie cutter. You know, it was like this, and if it wasn't like this, it was wrong. So I think that's what it affected them that way. It affected them negatively.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they weren't like everybody else.
So he kind of stayed in contact with his birth mother and his half sister for a while, but then, you know, that communication kind of broke down. After he got out of the army, he just kind of worked, you know, he worked for the postal service. You know, he was like a letter sorter and shit like that. So in the mid 1970s, about 1976, is when he started committing crimes. Now, it is thought, and they didn't know this until later on, but it is thought that David Berkowitz committed at least 1,400 arsons around the New York City area. And like I said, they didn't find that out until much later on because he admitted it. Yeah, so he started like starting fires and shit like that, because that's a big serial killing and arson.
He's a pyromaniac.
Serial killing and arson are very closely correlated for whatever reason, and that definitely seems to be the case here.
Yeah, it's weird. I'd read about some of those pyromaniacs, and their thinking and just the way they see things is totally different from us. Like, they're walking around, and me and you would just be walking around just seeing the normal environment. What they're noticing is what they can set on fire. Like, if I just take my lighter and I hit the edge of that fence with all that ivy growing through that chain link fence, it'll burn this entire fence down and that house. You know, they can see where the fire is going to go. Right. They know how fire behaves. And it would never occur to me and you, to me or you. But they just have this huge like temptation to start that fire because they can see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They see the potential for the fire.
Well, because
it's like they're driven to, I gotta set that on fire.
I think that's part of what fascinates me about serial killers, is that particularly when you interview them or like when you read stuff that they wrote, and I'm just like, the way they think is just like so alien.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, why would that even occur to you? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm glad it doesn't, because that means I'm not a psychopath.
Yeah, like I'm not driving around and then see something and go, boy, that sure would burn. Boy, that would burn.
Boy, I could cut that guy in half.
Yeah, if I were to set that on fire, that would burn the whole block down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't think that way.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
But yeah, so so there were all the arsons. Apparently he started doing that kind of stuff. That petty larceny, that kind of stuff. Again, petty larceny and arson very closely correlated with later serial killing, as it was in this case. Now, I didn't actually know this either, because David Berkowitz, before they caught him, and before he was called Son of Sam, he was actually called the 44 caliber killer, because that was the 44 caliber like bulldog revolver that he used
Charter Arms bulldog
in most of his crimes.
Yep.
However, the first crime that he later admitted to was actually a stabbing. And this happened. He had a hunting knife, and he stabbed these two girls. It was on Christmas Eve of 1975. Now, one of the victims was never identified, so I guess she just took off. However, the other victim was named Michelle Foreman. Now, neither of these women died. Michelle Foreman did have to be hospitalized, which is why they know who she is, but they don't know who the other person was, so evidently it was very minor. So this was David Berkowitz's first botched murder attempt, and it was with a hunting knife. Now, from this point forward, subsequently, he always used the same revolver.
Yeah.
So, now the first shooting that is attributed to him, this happened on July 29th, 1976. And this was in the Bronx, in the Pelham Bay area, about 1:10 in the morning. This was Donna Loria, who was 18 years old, and her friend Jody Valenti, who was 19 years old. They had just come from a nightclub called Peach Trees, and they were sitting in Jody's Oldsmobile, just talking and, talking about their night or whatever. So Donna gets out of the car, presumably to go into her house or, walk down the street or what have you. This man starts walking quickly toward her. This startled her, as it would, and she started to say something like, "What is this?" Like, or "Who are you?" or whatever. Then he pulled the gun out of a paper bag that he had been holding, and he shot her. So she was killed instantly. He also shot Jody Valenti, although it only hit her in the thigh, and then he shot again, but it missed, and then he took off. So Jody Valenti lived. Now, she said, and like I said, every witness description of this dude is slightly different, and I think that's kind of like fueling the speculation that maybe he wasn't working alone. I mean, I kind of feel like he was, but I can see why you would think otherwise. You know what I mean? So Jody Valenti, she lived. She said that he was a white male in his 30s, that he had a pale complexion, about 5'9". She said he weighed about 160 pounds, short, dark, curly hair in a quote-unquote mod style.
160 pounds at 5'9"? That means he was pretty thin.
Yeah, see, this is why I'm
That's a little strange,
about it.
because he's kind of a short, dumpy guy from what I remember.
He's kind of...
Yeah.
I wouldn't call him fat, but he's dumpy, chubby.
Yeah.
Kind of
That's how I remember him. I mean, I haven't seen him.
Yeah, I don't know how tall he is, in real life, but you know what I mean. He probably was about 5'9", I guess. 5'8", 5'9". That's about average, isn't it? 5'8".
Yeah, I think. It depends. I think the national average of the U.S. is going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting because this description of this person, Donna Loria's father also saw, presumably, the person who was the shooter, and he described him the same way. And he also said that there had been this yellow compact car, and it was like cruising up and down like in the area, like it was like they were looking for somebody. So he said that he'd seen that guy get out of that car, and it was the same description that Jody Valenti had seen. Okay. Yeah. And like I said, this was in the Bronx, and this was the first murder attributed to him.
And let me talk about this pistol.
All right.
This pistol actually is a legendary pistol in the United States. When I was a kid back in the 80s, the Charter Arms Bulldog was kind of still a good carry option. In other words, it was it was something that you could actually still buy. It was inexpensive. It was a small frame, I believe 5-shot, .44 special revolver. And .44 special in those days was pretty attractive because it had power similar to a .45, but it was a rimmed cartridge that you could use in a revolver. This was going on in the days, I remember it from the days where the Beretta 92F and all these new wonderful 9mm were coming out, and they were big and fat, and they carried 17, 18 rounds of 9mm, and there weren't any good hollow points for it, so a lot of people were skeptical of 9mm. But they liked that old trusty .45, like the 1911, but you couldn't conceal it. But the Charter Arms Bulldog, you could conceal it. It was small enough for that. They give you 5 shots of something kind of like a .45. Now, it was normally in .44 special in these days, and that caliber's kind of obsolete now. I don't think you'll be able to find much of it, but it was just a lead hollow point. I don't even think it had a jacket on it. It was just lead, or a lead round nose. And tell you what, one shot of that in the right spot would mess you up. And that's, why I was using it.
Yeah.
Wasn't a weak pistol by any means.
Yeah, this was a large caliber. I mean, the fact that so many of his victims survived is actually kind of amazing.
Yeah.
I think it was I don't know if it was...
It was a hard-hitting pistol.
Yeah.
Funny thing is that it was kind of low cost. They didn't really wear too well. If you shot them a lot, they started to get loose. And they'd lose timing in the cylinder. But most people mostly carried them more than they shot them.
Yeah. You
can still find them every now and then, but they're nothing compared to, say, like a Smith & Wesson. They're kind of cheap. And Charter Arms is not really a high-class company. And the Bulldog was really their best seller. That was,
I feel like there's probably serial killer groupies out there that want to collect all the weapons, like the types of weapons that all the famous serial killers had.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be at least a couple people like that.
I haven't seen one in a long time, a Charter Arms Bulldog. They also made them in .38 special.
Do they still make them? I don't even know.
Probably not. I'd have to check, but I haven't seen one.
Maybe the whole association with...
No, the sales went up.
Well, yeah.
That actually made it famous. It caught
because
a lot of
I have to say
attention.
that the apartment building that this motherfucker lived in, they changed the address because he lived there. They changed the number. Obviously the street name was the same.
Charter Arms Bulldog was known about in the gun circles. A lot of cops used it as a backup revolver, that in like an ankle holster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So then there was another shooting. Now this one, neither of the victims died. This actually took place October 23rd, 1976 in Queens. So he's moved to a different borough now. The victims were Carl Denaro, who was 20 years old, and Rosemary Keenan, who was 18 years old. Just like the first two victims, these two were both sitting in a car. They had been out for a night out, and they were, sitting in their car talking or whatever. And then suddenly all the windows, exploded. The windows exploded. They actually panicked and started driving away. They did not realize that someone was shooting at them at first, even though Carl Denaro actually had been shot in the head. And was bleeding profusely from a head wound, as head wounds usually do, and actually drove. Now, Rosemary was not all that wounded. I don't think she was hit by a bullet. She was cut up by the glass, but she was pretty much fine. Carl Denaro actually lived, but he needed a metal plate in his skull from the head wound. But shit,
he was lucky to have lived.
That is hardcore.
Yeah,
he didn't realize that he'd been shot.
I'd like to see what happened. He might have been hit with lead round nose, and the head is round and hard. And if it doesn't directly impact, it won't pop a hole through the skull. If it's a glancing blow, the skull could actually deflect a lead round nose bullet, because the point of the bullet is round. You know what I mean? So the bullet can't get a bite into the bone.
Yeah.
That's why flat-pointed bullets actually kind of work a little better, and also hollow points on round objects like skulls. But he's lucky to have survived.
That's what I thought.
It would still be like getting hit in the head with a hammer, a glancing blow of a hammer.
To be able to drive off after that, I mean, I understand the adrenaline and you'd be paying what the fuck is happening, and when you get injured really badly, I've had it happen too. It's if you don't see it, you don't realize, you know what I mean, and you just kind of just start running or whatever it is you do. And he just started driving and didn't realize that somebody had shot him in the fucking head.
44 Special is a heavy bullet. I think it was 200 grains of lead. I mean, that's about almost what a 45 bullet weighs. Getting hit in the head with that.
Yeah.
Be pretty traumatic. Even a glancing blow. Be like getting hit with a glancing blow of a hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cops did find some 44 caliber bullets like embedded in the car, but they were all like deformed and fucked up. And they said, okay, well, some of them were fucked up. They're like, we're never going to be able to figure out like what gun that came from. Now, interestingly, because this had happened in Queens and the first shooting happened in the Bronx, they did not associate the two crimes because they just thought there was two random shootings. I mean, it's New York City in the 70s. It was a lot of crime. And, you know, it was different police precincts also. So they didn't really see any reason why these two crimes would be related. So
bullets were all fucked up because it was an all lead bullet without a copper jacket around it, just like I told you.
Yeah.
That didn't survive impact. It just mashes up, especially if the lead's real soft, you know.
Yeah.
So there's just, you know, it ends up looking like a chewed up piece of bubble gum.
Yeah.
What it looks like, yeah.
That's probably what these look like.
Yeah.
But they said, there's no way we could figure out what firearm that came
Right.
from in particular. So the next one took place on November 27th, 1976. This was two girls, Donna DeMasi, who was 16 years old, and Joanne Lamino, who was 18 years old. They were walking home late at night from a movie. This was also in Queens, but a different neighborhood. And they had come home and they were actually standing on the porch of Joanne's house, like talking. And this guy in military fatigue starts approaching them and starts asking them for directions, and then pulls out the revolver and shoots them. Now, after they fell to the ground, he fired a bunch more. He also hit the building and a bunch of other stuff and then ran away. Now, a neighbor actually heard the gunshots and came out to help. He saw a blonde man with a pistol in his hand. Whether this was the shooter, I mean, we're assuming it is, but I don't know. I feel like Berkowitz maybe wore a wig, because I feel like some of the witnesses later said they thought the hair looked fake or it looked like a wig. So that might have been the case in this instance. But the neighbor definitely said, I saw a blonde man running away from the apartment building with a gun in his hand. Now, Donna DeMasi, she had a wound in her neck, but it was not life-threatening, so she actually survived. Joanne Lamino was shot in the back. She also survived, but she is a paraplegic. So neither of those victims died, but they didn't have a fun time.
It's just a weird situation. You get a guy who actually completes 4 years of service in the military, some of it in Korea. You know, I served in Korea. But yet he didn't mature to a point to where you're like, I'm not going to go around shooting girls. What is it that makes a man go, you know what, I'm going to dress up in my army uniform. I'm going to shoot the prettiest girls I see. What kind of fucked up shit is that?
That's what kills me. Like I said, this is what fascinates me about serial killers, because you have to make a conscious decision.
Yeah.
To wake up one morning and say, today I'm going to start being a serial killer.
Yeah, I mean, I can...
How fucking weird is that?
I mean, to me, it's more conceivable that you'd have, like, a 16 or a 17-year-old incel living in his mom's basement that doesn't even know any women. You know what I mean? Never dated anybody.
Well, yeah, because teenagers are
and
stupid motherfuckers anyway.
Maybe he might do some stupid shit like this, but this is a guy who went through 4 years of military service in Korea, which should have brought him into close contact with lots of females.
He had a job. He had
a job, yeah.
That's what I mean.
What kind of issues can't you work out by that time?
He was seemingly normal.
What kind of issues can't you work out by that time?
Evidently some big ones in this case.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I mean, I just can't imagine that. You know what? Fuck them girls. I'm gonna kill them. What kind of shit is that?
Yeah, it just seems.
You know what I mean?
And it's weird because he didn't seem to have. You know how like some of these recent like mass shooters, like wasn't it like Elliot Rodger or some of those other retards that like you know, that no women will have sex with me, therefore all women are evil, therefore I should go kill them. But it's like this, I mean, David Berkowitz never really said anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, if he was a guy like that, though, he should have grown out of that by this time.
You would think.
You would think. You know what I mean?
Evidently not.
I think there are guys that are like
Much
that.
to the detriment of society.
I think there are guys that are like that, but I don't think they're like that for very long. You know what I mean? I think they kind of grow out of it within maybe months sometimes. You know
I mean, depending on their situation, you would think, I mean, and I know this is like, you know, dudes don't mature as fast as girls. They just don't. That's
and not in the same way.
And not in the same way. But I do feel like once a dude is 30, he should, like, not be doing that shit anymore.
Oh, no, what are you talking about? He shouldn't even be thinking that shit by the time he's 16.
Well, in an ideal world.
These kind of problems really should be worked out by 10, 11, you would think. Yeah. A lot of the shit that serial killers do is juvenile. You know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, what do you call it?
Yeah, they're like stunted.
It's like stunted growth of something that an infant might do, you know what I mean? But this is just...
And they're trying, particularly these types of serial killers that want, like, the accolades. Like, you know what I mean? Because he, like, would, you know, leave letters for the police and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You know, like Zodiac and people like that would do. I feel like that's a very, like you said, it's a very juvenile... power play. Like, you want to feel like a badass because I mean, these people feel powerless, obviously.
They want power. They have all this anger and they want power.
Yeah.
And then they try to get it by murdering the weakest of the people in cowardly ways. How does that make you powerful?
That's what I mean. It's like sneaking up. Just same thing with the Zodiac. It's like just sneaking up on people that are just sitting in their cars minding their own business.
Yeah. You want to impress me?
There's nothing badass about that.
You want to be powerful? You want to impress me? Go attack the police station.
Yeah, it's like, do something ballsy.
Yeah. Do something that's going to take balls. You know what I mean?
I mean, don't do that. I'm just saying,
you know, go 20 versus 1 the hard way, you against these other armed guys.
Yeah, don't just, like, run up to a car and, like, shoot in the windows.
16-year-old girl's going to kill her because she got a nice booty. You know what I'm talking about? She got a nice booty. I'm going to have to kill that.
Yeah, that's
what kind of shit is that?
That's what I mean. That's some fucked up shit. Yeah. And like I said, this is the same kind of shit this dude is doing. He's just walking up to, like, random people walking down the street or random people sitting in cars that are mostly, like, teenagers or just in their 20s or whatever. You know, hey, we just went to a movie and we're sitting in a car and all of a sudden some motherfucker comes up and shoots you through the fucking window. Yeah. What the fuck, man?
I'm trying to put myself into his shoes and I just can't.
I can't either. Like I said, it's like it's alien to me. Like, why the fuck? Like, look, I get angry. Like, I've been angry enough at people. It's like, man, if it was legal to strangle you right now, I totally would. But just like a random person that's just like walking down the street.
Yeah, of the opposite sex.
Yeah, like why? Why?
I don't know. I don't understand it.
Like, I don't feel like punching somebody unless they do something that really, really annoys me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. If they're just doing nothing, I don't care. I don't even pay attention. But okay, so the next shooting happened on January 30th, 1977. This was Christine Freund. She was 26. Her fiance was named John Deal, and he was 30. Again, they were sitting in their car near the Long Island Railroad Station. This was also in Queens. They had gone to see the movie Rocky, and then they were going to go to a nightclub to go dance in, like you do after you go see a movie. And then... here comes fucking Son of Sam, and he comes up and starts shooting into the car. So John drives away, like, panicking, because he's like, fuck, somebody's shooting into my car. He didn't really sustain that many injuries. You know, he was mostly okay. But Christine was actually shot 2 times and died later at the hospital. So at this point, the police are beginning to... link all these crimes together, mostly because they realize that they've all been committed with 44 caliber pistol, and they realize that the MO is very similar.
Cookie's trying to move the camera.
She's trying to move the camera. She thinks it's a bad angle, maybe. I don't know. She's
don't worry about it.
That's why it moved, because
don't worry about moving
the kitty is moving.
Okay.
She's still
gonna try to move the camera.
What are you doing?
Look at it. I've never seen anything like this. Cat's trying to move the camera. Leave it alone.
She's like, what?
Leave the camera alone.
This is hilarious.
Yeah.
She's hilarious. She's like, no, Daddy, don't move
it.
it.
How did I become the daddy to a cat?
That's why. You love it. You call yourself that all the time. This cat is like, she's like a super genius. Like, I know everybody says that about their kids and their dogs and cats and stuff, but no, seriously.
This cat's pretty smart.
She's
trying to take the camera.
Yeah, she wants to.
This is
she's
ridiculous.
like, she's a white.
And then she looks at us. Is anything wrong with that?
She's peeking at me over the top of the laptop. Like, you can't see it, but she's peeking at me over the top of the laptop right now. Like, so do you not like how I'm moving?
Yeah, and then she's pointing at it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. She's the camera woman now.
This is hysterical. Yeah. Okay, so at this stage, like I said, police are starting to link all the crimes together. Now, at first they think they're looking for multiple suspects, like I said, because the first couple shootings they had like a dark-haired person that some people had seen, and then the other shootings they had a blonde-haired person. So they produced composite sketches of 2 people, thinking there are multiple suspects.
Yes, that's where the multiple suspect theory came from.
Well, yeah, there was other shit too. I mean, like I said, I don't think anybody is crazy or like, oh, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist for thinking that. I'm not saying that there was like a satanic cult involved or anything like that, but it's not crazy to think that, because a lot of people did describe different perpetrators, different vehicles, even like in the same, area. So it's not crazy to think that maybe he wasn't working alone. Like maybe he had, an accomplice or 2 accomplices. I don't think it was a satanic cult or anything like that, because most of that was largely bullshit. Go back and see our show on the Satanic Panic for further information. But I don't know. I don't know how I've fallen. I'm not going to take like a hard stand either way, because I can see how you could think both things.
Just about halfway mark.
We probably are. Okay. Yeah, we're probably about the halfway point. So since Kitty, we'll have to do some camera adjustments.
She left.
Because she's like trying to eat the camera. And move it.
The camera's on a tripod. It's got a little handle, and she was grabbing the handle and with her mouth, and trying
to like pull it.
But she also kind of tried to hit it with her hand first. So she's funny.
That's why they can't. That's why
she's very observant. Whatever we do, she tries to do the same thing. She tries to turn the sink on with her hand.
Because she likes to drink out of the sink. Yeah. The bathroom sink.
I've caught her trying to pull the handles, because we have handles.
Because she sees us do it.
Yeah, trying to pull them, and she's be in the sink because she likes water to drip on herself. On her. She thinks that's a shower. Yeah. It's the only cat I know that loves water. She loves water.
I mean, I've seen other like YouTube videos with cats where like, yay, bath, but it's very, very unusual.
She wants the water to come splash on her.
Yeah, she'll curl up in the sink and be like, beep, beep, beep. And then you have to like turn the drips on. And then she watches, like they drip on her butt.
And she'll be,
And then she's like, ooh.
We're on her back leg.
And then she like licks it off.
Yeah, she's weird.
She's the weirdest cat ever.
Yeah,
she's awesome and stuff too. Yeah. And seriously, I can't even do the laundry with that. As second she hears the dryer open, she's like, Mommy, do you need help with the laundry? And she jumps into the dryer and she's like messing around all the clothes. What's she doing? Can I help you with anything?
Throw the pile of laundry down. She tries to dig underneath the pile of laundry.
We need to get a video of that.
Good thing she's a short-haired cat. She doesn't shed, so it doesn't
not much. Yeah, because otherwise
everything would have hair.
Because our other cat, Beijing, is long hair. Yeah. And she gets hair everywhere.
Yeah, she's like, you got to keep her away like the plague.
Hair. So I'm glad she doesn't roll around in her clothes. Because Baby Cookie does, but
spitting up hairballs every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, Baby Cookie doesn't really do that. Because, because she's short hair. But yeah. All right, so let's take a break, and then when we come back, we will talk more.
Okay, everybody. Jenny's got some new shirt designs up. 4 of them. Really good ones, too. Atlanta Ripper, Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm, the H.H. Holmes Murder Castle, and, of course, Demon Child, because man said he could. These are updated designs. I think they look really cool. Jenny did a great job on them. Were they fun making, Jenny?
They were very fun. And thank you very much. I think they came out very good.
Yeah, they get really good. They're very high-quality shirts. Jenny and I wear our own shirts at certain times when we're trying to put a spotlight on ourselves, and you can put a spotlight on yourselves. If you go ahead and pick up one of these shirts today, you guys are going to love them. Links in the description, www.zazzle.com at 13 o'clock.
Yeah, so go check out our store at www.zazzle.com/13 o'clock. We got these 4 cool new t-shirt designs, plus all our old ones if you'd rather get one of the old ones. But these ones are awesome, and you should check them out.
They're also available in women's cut, and they look really cute. Jenny's got some.
So thank you. Go check them out.
What you gonna do? Hey. What the? What's that? What are you doing? Yeah. Okay.
The Faceless Villain, a collection of the eeriest unsolved murders of the 20th century, Volume 2, includes cases spanning the years from 1960 through 1979, featuring such infamous crimes as the triple homicide at Lake Bodom, the family massacre known as the Good Heart Murders, the serial killings of the Zodiac, Bible John, Jack the Stripper, and the Freeway Phantom, the slaughter of dozens of women and girls along the Highway of Tears and the Texas killing fields, and the mysterious death of suspected spy, the Isdal woman, along with dozens of other fascinating and horrifying accounts. Buy it now from Amazon in print, Kindle, or audiobook format. All right, we are back talking about the Son of Sam killings. I think we got the camera back to where it was before the cat fucked with it. So
yeah, and we're
it's
at like 45 minutes. I thought this would take an hour, but again, I was wrong. This is going to take another 2 hours.
Well, you're always wrong. Well, and the thing is because
I'm always wrong. Okay.
you don't know how long it takes to do shit. And plus, I think a lot of the problem too is that you start drinking and then start talking, and then you go on and on and on.
I'm going on and on and on.
No, not right now, but you
Okay.
were earlier.
All right, okay.
All right. So the next, I'm trying to keep shit somewhat on track, but you know how that goes. But like I said, it seems like that's why everybody likes the show, so it's fine.
Yeah, because
Even though sometimes I'm sitting there looking at my notes, going, sure, let's get back to those.
sometimes I got to start banging on all cylinders and start taking the show down a creative path.
You do,
see?
yeah. We might be recording another
When
show
they-
after this one
when-
too, so we're gonna be in
yeah.
big trouble. He's gonna be
When
super
they're
drunk
making
on the
comments,
next
they're
week's.
usually talking about the crazy shit that I did on the side.
I have noticed that.
Yeah, you
Like
noticed
people are
that?
like always like commenting about like the extra shit, like the kitty videos, like the funny shit we said. You know what I mean? Like
Because
funny
this
little
is most people are tuning in because of entertainment.
yeah.
The
Well,
case
like I
is part
said,
of it, but you
yeah.
can get these dry ass cases anywhere.
Yeah.
We're giving it this dry ass case in a damn informative and entertaining
fun
way.
way.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. That's what I like to think anyway. So, all right. So, actually, the next crime that occurred was actually his only solo victim. This was Virginia, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Voskerichian or Voskerichian. She was a student at Columbia University. She was only 19 years old. On March 8th, 1977, it's about 7:30 in the evening, so quite early, she was actually walking home from class when this motherfucker just like walked up to her. And this detail breaks my fucking heart. She was carrying her textbooks, right? He pulls out the gun that points it at her, and she very quick thinking, I wouldn't have thought of this. She pulled her textbooks up in front of her face, to try to,
Block the bullet,
Block
yeah.
the bullet. It didn't work.
Went through it anyway and got her, huh?
Yeah. So she died anyway. Now, interestingly, like I said, and here is some more evidence why people think that this was more than one shooter. Because someone who lived in the area, they heard the gunshots. They were coming around the corner onto the same street. And this actually occurred only a couple of blocks from where Christine Freund got shot. So he's kind of going back to, the same kind of hunting grounds or the same neighborhoods. So in this neighborhood, this resident is like walking across, like comes around a corner, like right near the crime scene. And he almost runs into a person that he said was like a teenager. He said he was like 16, 18 years old. He said he was kind of chubby, clean shaven. He said he was wearing a sweater and like a cap, and that he was like running away from the crime scene. And that when he saw this kid, the kid like pulled his hat down over his face and said something like, "Oh, Jesus," or something like that. So other people said that they had seen this person also, like kind of hanging around the neighborhood, and they thought he looked kind of suspicious. People in the neighborhood also described somebody who looked like David Berkowitz hanging around the neighborhood as well. So there was that whole issue going on too. So at this stage, I'm not sure, like, I don't think the cops considered the chubby teenager person. I don't know if they considered him a suspect or just a witness or something like that. At this stage, they're kind of feeling like because of the, 44 caliber bullets that were used and all of the similarity in MO, they've kind of come to the conclusion that all of these were probably committed by the same person. Now, at this stage, they're like the dark-haired person that was described in in one of the earlier shootings is probably the suspect. Most of the other people that, various witnesses had seen were being sought as witnesses, not necessarily as suspects. This was right around the time too when the media started to like really go crazy with this shit, and it was just like, I mean, it wasn't just like the New York media, it was everywhere. It was all over the country, it was all over the world, really. I mean, it was like this big huge deal, like some random motherfucker going around just like shooting people in New York City.
Yeah, this is not normal.
No, even in New York City at the time,
yeah.
because I mean, New York City at the time, the crime rate was very high. There was a lot of muggings, a lot of rapes, a lot of.
But it was
shit
all
like that.
understandable stuff happening in places where, most of it, most crime is very, what's good, pedestrian. You know, robberies. You know what I mean? Robbing stores, but stuff like this actually it stands out in the United States. You know.
Well, and a lot of this happened in kind of nicer neighborhoods too.
Right.
Like it wasn't like some, crack den or anything like that where no one would think twice about it.
A lot of the average crime in the United States also is like bad guy on bad guy too, usually over the drug trade.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot
that's
of the
most of it. You never hear about it.
And honestly, crime has gone down. I mean, not just in the United States, but in Canada and stuff like that. It has precipitously dropped since the 1990s.
Yeah.
No one is quite sure exactly why. It's probably like a whole confluence of factors. Like you said, some people have said it's like lead.
I think it was lead
taking
poisoning.
lead out of the environment. That is one factor that a lot of people have mentioned.
Cars back in those days ran leaded gasoline.
Yeah.
And those cars blew lead particles everywhere. Every city just was, had a bunch of lead in it. And that lowers your IQ. It makes you violent.
So that is one thing,
Yeah, and old timers that I know that, from the proper backgrounds, law enforcement type backgrounds, said that really the worst was the 70s.
Well, yeah,
I think
that checks out.
In terms of actual body count, it might have been the 80s because they were probably throwing in the crack epidemic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which that was,
Yeah, I think it spiked in 89 and then started going drastically downward.
The whole crack war was pretty bad. But evidently, just in terms of just pure ruthlessness, the 70s was supposed to be the worst.
That's what I've... Like, I was just a kid then, but it really did seem like that was...
And when you think about it, that was the height of leaded gasoline.
Yeah, and like I said, you're not the first person to say that because that is one of the factors that people also point to. Abortion had been made legal too, so maybe some people that would have been born criminals weren't born. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So they said that might have kind of helped out too.
Maybe, yeah.
But there was a bunch of
started culling out the
right, exactly, which that might have been a factor.
Culling out the unwanted kids.
Yeah, but I do think lead might have been
I think it was lead poisoning.
Thing. And
because the Romans had a similar problem.
Yeah.
With lead piping for their water.
Yeah, it messes your brain up.
And the Romans, they kind of ancient Romans showed some weird behaviors, especially in the royal class.
Yeah.
Why? Because they could afford lead plates and they ate off of lead utensils.
Yeah.
They thought lead made food taste better. Because when you're cutting on there, little lead particles get in the food. And
the poisoning makes it
delicious. Kind of like salt. You know what I mean?
That's fucked up.
Yeah. So it all starts to make sense to me. And they were violent people.
Yeah.
I think it was leaded gasoline.
Yeah, because, you have to think, like, since the 70s, like, so much lead has been taken out of the environment, out of the water, out of the air.
There were
That's
some people
that making a big difference.
Some people that are into this theory say that in the inner cities, decades of lead particles from the traffic built up in those cities. And they blew around in the wind.
Yeah.
But it stayed there for a long, long time.
I liked your blowing around.
Yeah, it's my blowing around motion. Yeah, and then she talks shit about me. She's drinking too. She's over there pounding vodka.
I wasn't talking shit. I liked your gesture.
Okay.
It was entertaining.
All right, but I kind of think it was lead poisoning.
Yeah,
partially.
I think you might be onto something. I think that, like I said, I think it was a lot of factors, but I think that was probably.
I think that was one of the factors that helped.
It was environmental.
Yeah.
So, all right, here we go. So, like I said, newspapers starting to report this shit. It's all like fucking headlines all over the fucking world. Now, the next shooting took place on April 17th, 1977. Now, this was back in the Bronx. Most of the earlier ones, like I said, the first one was in the Bronx, and then it was like Queens, and then this one's back in the Bronx again. And this was actually only a couple blocks from the Loria Valenti shooting. Now, this was Alexander Esau, who was 20, and Valentina Suriani, who was 18. Again, they were sitting in a car near her house, and somebody just came up and started shooting. Each of them were shot twice. Valentina actually died at the scene, and Alexander died later on in the hospital. Neither of them got a look at their attacker, so, they couldn't describe him. So they, this is the same weapon. So again, police are like, okay, well, this is the 44 caliber killer, because that's what they were calling him at this point. He wasn't called the Son of Sam yet, until now. Because at this crime scene, they found a letter written in like kind of block letters. And I just saw when I was researching this, somebody made a font. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Son of Sam. But it was made a font out of the writing from the Son of Sam letters, because he had like a very particular way of like writing block letters. So somebody made a font out of that. So yay, I don't know. But yeah, so this is the first time that he referred to himself as Son of Sam. As I said before, he'd been called the 44 caliber killer. Now, this letter, I'm not going to read the whole thing. They didn't publish the whole thing at first because, like I said, the cops like to like hold details back just in case somebody comes in and confesses or whatever. So they didn't publish all of it, but they did publish like bits of it in the papers. And in this one, it's like, it's really badly spelled. Again, him and the Zodiac, it's like, maybe they don't know how to spell. It's like, you know what I mean? That's one of the things. I'm deeply hurt by your calling me a women hater. I guess women.
Yeah.
So we're
women.
women.
It's like whammon, but women. Yeah.
He says he's not a woman hater, but he does say he's a monster. And he says, I'm Son of Sam. He says, I'm a little brat. He starts saying all this stuff about Father Sam, like he commands me to kill, blah, de blah, and he's killed all these people, and they're just like bones buried underneath. He's like, I'm a different wavelength than everyone else. I'm programmed to kill. He tells the police, if you see me, shoot to kill, or else keep out of my way, blah, blah, blah. Then he says something about Papa Sam is old now. He needs some blood to preserve his youth. He has had too many heart attacks. And he repeats that 2 times, too many heart attacks. And then he says something about, I miss my pretty princess. Not really sure who he's referring to there. And then he calls himself Monster, Beelzebub, and my very favorite, the chubby behemoth. Which, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he's chubby, all right.
Yeah. So he said, the women of Queens are the prettiest of all. And I'm not even going to show you how that's spelled. I don't want to kill anymore, no sir, but I must. To the people of Queens, I love you. I want to wish you all a happy Easter. May God bless you, yada, yada. Okay, and then he says, yours in murder, Mr. Monster. That's how he signed it.
Do you think that he's trolling?
This, yeah.
I think he's trolling.
I mean, it sounds like...
To me, it sounds like he's trying to throw them off.
Yeah, it sounds like a crazy person wrote it, but it could also be somebody trying to sound like a crazy person.
Yeah, that's what I think. It doesn't sound authentic to me. I mean, I know that he wrote it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he's trying to throw the law enforcement off of his trail.
Yeah. It does kind of sound like that.
And it's not even really a good attempt. It's just like a lame attempt.
Yeah.
At trying to throw him off.
Yeah, it's like most of the shit, it's like, what the fuck is he even talking about? But, well, the interesting thing, too, is that when he kept saying stuff about Papa Sam and, like, he's had too many heart attacks, they have noted that a couple of the victims were nurses or, like, nursing students. So they're like, maybe there was some kind of thing there. Like, maybe he had a father figure that had a heart attack and, like, someone didn't save him or whatever.
They're overthinking it.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just, like, that's kind of thing. So after this letter was received, the police consulted a whole bunch of different psychiatrists and were like, what do you think of this? And then they developed like a psychological profile of who they thought the killer was. They thought that he probably suffered from various neuroses, obviously, perhaps paranoid schizophrenia. And they also thought that he probably believed that he was demonically possessed, because it did kind of sound like that from the letter.
Yeah, and I think that's what he wanted them to think.
Yeah, and he has, I mean, as far as I know, still to this day, he still contends that he was in a satanic cult back then and that he was not there. But he hasn't denied murdering some of those people. He said he did, but he said he wasn't the only one. That
I don't believe it.
Of other ones.
I don't believe it.
See, I don't think I believe it.
He's trying to get some of the guilt off of him and say, well, I was in this organization that was making me do this.
Yeah, because he kind of went, here's the thing, when he was in prison, he went all born again Christian, as a lot of them do. And I feel like, you know, and he writes for a lot of Christian websites and like, you know, he's trying to get forgiveness and blah, blah, blah. So I do kind of feel like he's maybe trying to expiate some of the guilt.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, he is.
You know, I'm just saying there's some of that. So there was that letter, and then another letter shows up on May 30th, 1977, and this was addressed to a guy named Jimmy Breslin, who was a columnist at the Daily News. And it's funny because this letter was a lot, it's still crazy, but it was a lot better written, like a lot better spelled, for sure. But it kind of looked like it was from the same person. Now, it had been postmarked from Englewood, New Jersey, so I'm not sure how significant that is. But it said the same kind of stuff that, you know, all this shit about Sam and, like, you know, I'm Sam's creation and all this other kind of stuff. Now, again, at the end of this letter, he's talking about other people to look into, and this is something that he was pointing back to when he was talking about, oh, this is a satanic cult, blah blah blah. He said that there was somebody called the Duke of Death. He said there was somebody called the Wicked King Wicker, the 22 Disciples of Hell, John Wheaties, who he called a rapist and suffocator of young girls. And so he's saying that all these people are, like, related to the crime, and this was back then. This was 1977. So underneath, and he actually signed this one, Son of Sam, and then there was, like, this weird, like, logo type of thing underneath. Now, in this particular letter, he had said something to the effect of, what will you have for July 29th, which the police took as a threat that something was going to happen on that day. So, you know, so that Breslin, like, contacted the police and said, hey, I think something bad's going to happen. Now, at this stage, because of the way the letter was laid out and the way it was written and the logo that was drawn at the bottom, it seemed very professional looking. They thought that maybe it was somebody that was familiar with graphic design or, you know, or was a comic letterer perhaps, or knew about printing or something like that, because it was, like, a good looking letter, I guess. But as I said, it was a lot better spelled than the first one, even though it was just, like, as crazy as the other one. So then there was another shooting, June 26, 1977. This was Sal Lupo, who was 20, and Judy Placido, who was 17. This was also in Queens. They had left a disco. They were sitting in a parked car, and it was 3 a.m., and somebody came up and shot into the vehicle 3 times. Sal was actually shot in the arm. Judy was shot in the head, shoulder, and back of the neck, but they both survived. They told the police later, they said it's funny, well, not funny, but, you know, funny, weird, not funny, haha, that they were, like, sitting in the car and they'd actually been talking about the Son of Sam case right before the Son of Sam came up and shot them. So, you know, just saying. It was, that's super creepy. So neither one of them saw him. But 2 other people in the area said they had seen a dark-haired man who was tall and he was wearing a leisure suit, 70s y'all, and that he was running away from the area. Now, one of these people said they saw him get in a car and drive away, and this person actually had the presence of mind to write down part of the license plate.
Yeah, I remember this, yeah.
So, now, interestingly, another witness in the same area, again, described a blonde man with a mustache who drove off in a Chevy Nova that didn't have its headlights on. Yeah. So again, like I said, not crazy that they think maybe there was more than one. But they, at this stage, they're thinking, okay, well, the dark-haired man, this dark-haired suspect that has been seen at most of these crime scenes, he's probably the shooter. Maybe these other people are just witnesses or happen to be in the area.
Now, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, this license plate that was written down leads to a license plate that eventually gets a ticket. Parking
this
ticket,
was
right?
late. This happened later, yeah.
Okay. So, but this license plate that was written down is Berkowitz's license plate?
I'm actually not sure if this is the same one or not.
Okay. All right.
Because I'm going through the timeline.
Right. Because I was just thinking that I know how he was eventually caught.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it for these people that really don't know, but it had to do with license plates and tickets.
You just got
I just spoiled it. Hey man, Kool,
well, like I said,
Kool Khan makes a motherfucker just spill his guts sometimes.
But this is the 70s. It's
70s.
like, you should already know this.
You should already know this shit, yeah.
But yeah. So then, at this stage, the police are freaking out because, you know, it's been a year since the first 44 caliber killer murders, and they're afraid that there's going to be like some big thing on that day. So there's like this huge dragnet. They're like, you know, have fucking cops everywhere and all this other stuff, you know, in Queens and the Bronx and everywhere. However, because the cops were out in force in Queens and the Bronx, the next shooting happened in Brooklyn. So he went somewhere else.
Right.
July 31st, 1977. This was Stacy Moskowitz and Robert Violante. They were both 20 years old. They were sitting in Robert Violante's car, and it was parked like, on the side of a street, like in an area, in a neighborhood called Bath Beach, which is actually a nice, kind of upper middle class neighborhood. Sitting in the car, making out like you do. Some man comes around to the passenger side and fires 4 rounds into the car, shooting both victims in the head. Stacy actually died in the hospital. Robert Violante actually lived, but lost all of the sight in one eye and most of the sight in his other eye.
It's a shame.
Now, this particular crime, this one had a lot of witnesses. There was this guy named Tommy Zano. He was 19, and he was in a car, with his date, with his girlfriend, like only 3 cars in front of, the car where the shooting had happened. And he actually looked in his rearview mirror and saw it. So he got a pretty good look at the person that was shooting into the car. Because it was apparently under a streetlight, it was a full moon, blah, blah, blah. He described him as being late 20s or 30 years old, 5'7" to 5'9", shaggy hair that was dark blonde or light brown, although he said the hair looked like a wig. And interestingly, another couple that were in the area at the time specifically also said that they saw a white male wearing a light-colored cheap nylon wig. So this very well could have been Berkowitz disguising himself, but not in a
really good way. In a good way, yeah.
Because even from far away, people were like, yeah, it looked like a wig.
Yeah, he's a wig, yeah.
And they all said they saw the car, and it was like a light-colored compact car, like driving away from the scene without headlights on. Now, at this stage, one of the women who was also parked alongside, she wrote down part of the license plate. She got most of it. She said, I wasn't sure like what the first couple letters and numbers were, but she's like, I know that for, the last ones were either 4GUR or 4GVR. So she wrote it down. So at this stage, a bunch of witnesses have reported seeing what they describe as a yellow Volkswagen or a yellow compact car, like driving away from the scene, sometimes without headlights on. Some people have described someone who looks very much like David Berkowitz would end up looking. Some people described a white man in his late 20s who looked like a grubby hippie or had like a skinny face or something like that. So, there was all kind of, at this stage, they were kind of like, there were differing witness accounts, but most of them were more similar than they had been in the past. Now, there's this guy who was named Thomas Scally. I'm not sure if that's his real name or if it's a pseudonym, because I know that some of the witnesses, they gave them pseudonyms. But he said that he was sitting in a park and, with a friend of his who was a girl, and that someone, like a yellow Volkswagen Beetle, like pulled up alongside, and he like got scared, and he had like an air pistol or something like that, like under the seat of his car. So he like pulled it out and pointed it at the guy, and the guy took off. So they think maybe that was him too. Now, this person reported that it was a light-skinned black man, but he also said that it looked like he had a stocking over his face. So that might have been why that was. So like I said, a lot of people seeing a yellow Volkswagen, which is, spoiler alert, not the car that it ended up being, although it was yellow. So at this point, they actually weren't sure. They didn't know until a little bit later that this was actually like another Son of Sam killing. This actually ended up being the last one, because shortly after this, there was a woman named Cecilia Davis, and she had been walking her dog in the neighborhood where the shooting occurred. Now, she saw someone walking down the street acting suspiciously who looked kind of like David Berkowitz, and she said that he looked at me like interestedly, like, hey, I could shoot that person. I'm just, speculating. Okay. But I'm assuming that that's what she meant. And then she heard gunshots. So she ran back to her house, and she said that she had seen a cop putting a ticket on this particular car because it was parked by a fire hydrant. So since the cops were this car was actually in this area at the night of the shooting, so they pulled all the tickets that they had given in that area that night, and there weren't that many. One of them belonged to a 1970 four-door yellow Ford Galaxy, belonging to one David Berkowitz.
Yeah.
So finally, they were going to interview him, so they go to pick him up. Now, they look in the car, that had got the ticket that they knew belonged to him, and they see like a shotgun or a rifle. Now, these were technically legal, but they kind of used that as an excuse to like search the car, and they wanted to search the apartment and stuff like that. They also found so when they searched the car, they found like a bunch of other suspicious shit, like some duffel bags with ammunition in there. They found like some maps of crime scenes, and also they found a letter. So
he had a shotgun also in there? Is it a shotgun or a rifle?
Yeah, I think it was
well, it's
a
two different
rifle.
things. It was a rifle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was in the car, and like I said,
That was weird. He had that in the car where you could see it from the window.
Yeah, you could see it just looking in the window.
Okay.
So obviously he wasn't all that concerned.
Well, they weren't illegal, like you said, but you would think that you would try to hide that just so people wouldn't be curious.
Yeah.
But I don't think that dude's thinking is too good.
He didn't seem to.
Nah.
Me. But like I said, they wanted to. They were kind of like staking out the apartment. They wanted to like wait. So if they want a big confrontation and shit like that. But evidently, so he gets out, he comes out of the apartment, he gets in his car, and then the cops like kind of surround him. Some sources say that the first thing he said was, "Oh, you finally got me. What took you so long?" Some of the guy that was the arresting officer, Detective Falotico, said, "Now that I've got you, who have I got?" And apparently the suspect said, "You know."
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so then the cop says, "No, I don't know. Like, who are you?" And then he said, "I'm Sam." So that's how they figured out this. So like I said, there's two different versions of that story floating around, but pretty much the same thing. So they go in his apartment. They find a bunch of like satanic graffiti. So he didn't pull that entirely out of his ass. They did find all that shit on his apartment walls. He had actually kept a bunch of journals and shit since he was 21 years old. And he had like a bunch of notebooks that he had written in. And there was all kind of, that was when they first found out about the arsons, because he talked about all of them in there. And they're like, "Oh, we were wondering who did those. It was this motherfucker." Yeah. So they think it was like I said, 1,400, 1,500 arsons.
Damn, that's a lot of arsons.
That's a lot of arsons, right? Yeah. So at this stage, the cops are pretty sure. They're like, "Okay, this has got to be son of Sam." So they did a press conference, and they're like, "Okay, we caught him. It's fine." Now he actually confessed pretty much right away, like the morning that they captured him. He said, "I'm going to plead guilty." And at this stage, it was where he very famously said that he started killing people because the neighbor's dog
told him to do it.
Him to do it. I don't know if it was the kind of thing where either the dog's name was Harvey. He was a black Labrador. Either the dog was possessed by a demon, or the dog was possessed by the neighbor, whose name was Sam, who was the devil, and he was like speaking through the dog and like telling him to kill people. So that was like the first thing. This is like the dog said that he needed like the blood of pretty girls for whatever reason.
But he wasn't taking the blood, so he's bullshitting.
Yeah, he was just shooting people.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sam Carr was his neighbor, and that was his dog, and he said that the dog was telling him to do that. Now, even though he was saying... there was another thing, too, that he said, like, during his confession that made other people think that, maybe there were more than one. He said, there are other sons out there, like other sons of Sam. So some people took that to mean that,
He just knew that there were other serial killers.
Yeah, so despite how crazy all this shit sounded, yes, like a dog told me to shoot people, he was assessed by several different mental health professionals, and they all said he is competent to stand trial. Yeah. You know what I mean? He is not... He knows right from wrong, clearly.
Because I think that's pretty much...
Yeah.
He's fantasizing and trying to get people to buy into this fantasy. He knew it was bullshit. Come on.
Now, his lawyer actually asked him, they said, "Hey, you might want to say not guilty by reason of insanity," but David Berkowitz said no, that he wasn't going to do that.
When insane, he was just in league with the devil.
Yeah, so he actually pleaded guilty at his trial. So they didn't have to go through a big to-do or anything like that. He just said, "Yep, I did it, whatever." He was actually very calm at the initial like little trial or hearing or whatever. However, 2 weeks later, when they were doing the sentencing, he very famously tried to jump out of a 7th floor window.
Damn.
Unfortunately, he did not succeed.
Yeah.
But yeah. So they restrained him and he started chanting.
It wasn't unfortunate though, because he was trying to take the easy way out.
True.
Make that motherfucker stay in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he still is.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's still alive.
Yeah.
Now, after they restrained him, after this little stunt, he started chanting, "Stacy is a whore." Obviously, Stacy.
Who's Stacy?
Was one of his victims.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, so there was a whole thing. Like, I even have, I found a court drawing, because you know how to have the people like do the court drawings and courtroom drawings and stuff, and of him like,
Yeah.
trying to like they had to restrain him, like, just trying to jack out of it. So now it was only after all of this shit about, oh, the dog is possessed by a demon and he told me blah, 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 and I'm in a satanic cult and all this other shit. It should be noted that in 1979,
Yeah.
he called all that demonic possession stuff, quote unquote, a hoax.
Yeah.
Right? So he even told that to the court-appointed psychiatrist.
So he backed off of that.
Yeah, and he basically said, now he's kind of gone back to it in later years. But in 1979, this is only 2 years after he got caught.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, that whole dog thing and the demon thing, that's a hoax. They made that up. And he actually even said the dog thing was made up by the media, even though the police said no, that's what he said, but whatever. But then he said in 1979, he's like, no, I was just murdering people because people rejected me and, so I was just getting back at them or whatever. So they first sent him to like a psychiatric ward, and then they sent him around to various prisons. As I said, in prison in 1987, he became a born-again Christian and said that he would no longer like to be referred to as the son of Sam. He now wants to be referred to as the son of hope.
No, okay.
And yeah, I was like, all right. But yeah, so he writes for a lot of like, I didn't go read anything, but he apparently writes for a lot of Christian websites, and he's like asking for forgiveness. And actually some of the victims' families have forgiven him, which fair play to them. That's more than I could do. Sorry, man. I wouldn't be able to do that. I just can't. So, there was that whole thing. And like I said, they have, even though he got 6 consecutive life sentences, he does come up for parole every now and then. I think it's the law. You're supposed to come up for a parole hearing like every 2 years, depending on what your sentence was. But he has consistently like refused to show up.
Getting out.
And I don't think they would let him out anyway. He's the fucking son of Sam.
Yeah.
Even though he says he got like all kind of honorary degrees in prison and all this other kind of shit.
Doesn't matter.
But yeah, but he's been a model prisoner, blah, blah, blah. But I've noticed, and like I said, there was even one of those like fucking A&E like criminal shows with, what's that dude's name? Bill shit. I can't remember his last name right now. I'm too drunk. But but there was a whole thing like where he was interviewed, and it looked like probably 80s or maybe 90s, because he still looked pretty young. Where he's just going on about this satanic cult thing. And some of the people that he referred to, like in that letter that he sent to Jimmy Breslin, they do refer to actual people. So, and like I said, some people have pointed to this whole, well, some of the witnesses saw a blonde guy, some saw a chubby teenager, some saw different vehicles, blah, blah, blah. So maybe there was more than one person.
No.
Like working at this. So he's really been kind of working that angle where, I was recruited into a satanic cult by Sam Carr, who was, who owned the dog that was supposedly telling him to kill people, and the son. Now, by the time he said this, though, Sam Carr and the other guy that were they were both dead.
Yeah, think about how unlikely that would be.
See, yeah.
That there was a big satanic cult and only one of them got caught.
Yeah.
Where are the other ones?
Right.
If they were doing that shit too, they'd get caught and then all of a sudden they go,
Well,
we were working with
like
him.
I said.
Yeah, they're, no.
And some of them were dead before he started saying that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's not possible. Anything's possible.
No, after they died, he started to say that because he knew that it wouldn't be. No, no.
I don't buy the whole I was in a satanic cult and they were there too. No. And honestly, like there have been some investigators that thought, maybe he did have an accomplice or 2 accomplices or whatever. Not necessarily the satanic cult thing. Now they actually did reopen the investigation in 1996 because they thought not necessarily satanic cult, but the fact that he might have had accomplices, they thought that was worth exploring. The case is still technically open, but it's kind of like inactive because they didn't really find any evidence to pursue like any new leads.
If he had an accomplice, who did the accomplice kill? See, that's the
Well,
thing.
so now he said that he only killed 3 of the people.
Oh,
Or he
so
only
put it
did
on
3
it.
of the shootings. So he didn't, like, deny doing the shootings.
And they just traded the pistol amongst
He
each
said
other.
he was there at all of them,
Yeah.
but that he only actually was the gunman on 3 of the shootings.
It's unlikely.
Now, like I said, he was originally, it was 6 murders and 7 attempted murders, because 7 people that he shot, they lived.
I say it's unlikely.
I think it's unlikely,
Very
too.
unlikely, yeah. Because a guy would normally, once he's coming up to trial, he goes, yeah, but I didn't kill those. I only killed the 3. You know what I mean? Because he's going to try to barter down for a lighter sentence by turning state's evidence against another guy. No.
Although in some ways, it's like he's so fucking old now. It's like you'd think that he would just stop it. They're not letting him out.
Ego's involved.
I guess.
And you don't want to back up on the lies that you've been telling, you know.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe he's just, like, sunk himself in so deep. Or maybe he's, like, convinced himself of it after all this time. I mean, all he's just been sitting there in prison. And maybe he, like, has
Maybe he's telling other inmates this.
Yeah.
In order to keep himself alive or to keep himself from being bothered, you know.
Yeah.
Screwed with, oh, no, I was in a satanic cult. Oh, yeah, bro, cool. You know, whatever.
To make himself seem like
Yeah, but he's living
evil.
in a prison society, so it's different, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
Now, some people have said that, you know, even in some of his earlier, like, confessions, like back in 1979 and stuff like that, he had made reference to the very famous murder of Arliss Perry. She was actually murdered in a church in North Dakota. And it's like, I was reading about her murder today. It was unsolved for a long time, but they actually solved it this year. With DNA evidence. The guy that did it is dead. He was like a security guard at the church.
Okay.
But she was murdered. They found they found her in the church, and she had like a candle like sticking out of her vagina and stuff. Like this is horrifying.
Damn.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was a very famous unsolved case. They finally solved it this year. But I think I don't think that David Berkowitz like said that he knew who did. He was just implied that somebody that was in the same cult like did that.
Yeah, he's full of shit.
But like I said, they found out that it was the
Just
security guard. It was a security guard. Like at the time, they didn't think it was because his prints didn't match. But when they did a DNA test later on, the guy was dead by the time they did that. But by
they
the
got
time
the wrong prints.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it's just the prints
Prints
were
from
too
somebody
different.
else,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like I said, I'm not sure how seriously I want to take. Like I said, they did reopen the case in 1996 because they did feel like it was worth looking into, that maybe there were other people involved, but they didn't really find anything definitive. So, and some investigators on the case have said, look, you know, we've talked to David Berkowitz. He has like a pretty much photographic memory of all of the crimes. Like he knows exactly where everyone was, like what exactly happened. It's like, this is him, and there was no other person.
I'll tell you this much though. Whoever the Zodiac killer was is going to be a guy very similar to David Berkowitz, if you ask me.
It's a very similar modus operandi. He does pretty much the exact same shit.
It's going to be the same motive, the same kind of guy.
I mean, even like a lot of the letters seem the same. Like the "ooh, I'm so crazy" type with the block letters and all that kind of shit. Like I said, approaching random people in cars and shooting
I would think
them.
probably military.
Yeah.
For
Zodiac.
Yeah, probably military. Somebody did see him and survived and said that he did have kind of a military bearing about himself. The way he cut his hair, the way he wore his clothes. So
it's weird. It does seem to be a lot of that. I mean, like I said, David Berkowitz was in the army. Yeah. Fucking what's his face for like Golden State Killer.
Yeah.
He was in the military.
Yeah.
Some of them were.
Yeah.
Especially like these type
Golden
of
State Killer
killers.
was police though, so military and police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel like, well, remember, and I think I mentioned this maybe on the Golden State Killer Captured show about how that was one of the most common jobs of serial killers.
Was to be a cop or
was to be ex-army or cop.
Yeah.
Or weirdly, like forestry workers.
Yeah. Although I tend to think that the Zodiac is ex-Navy.
Yeah.
Or Marine.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the little glyphs that he used kind of had maritime.
I see what you're saying.
And some of the things about the way with his shoes and his hair sounds kind of like Navy.
Yeah. I feel like,
Marine.
well, because Son of Sam, like, he didn't write as many letters, because the Zodiac fucking wrote letters, like, all the time. Like, at least the ones that they know were him, because there were some fakes later on. But, you know, he definitely had a thing where he was just, like, even after he stopped killing people for years and years afterward, he would, like, keep sending fucking letters to the newspaper.
Yeah.
Now, David Berkowitz didn't send that many, but it did seem like he was trying to establish, for lack of a better word, a brand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Son of Sam, and then he would draw this little logo under it was kind of like a man symbol and a woman symbol and like some other shit like on there. Like he was trying to do a logo like Zodiac.
I'm going to say Zodiac was Navy.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying that is because of a woman who survived seeing him said that he had spit shine shoes.
Yeah.
That's not really a hardcore Army thing.
Yeah.
Army infantry guys will blacken their shoes. They'll polish them a little bit with some kiwi. But they won't go into all that spit shine shit.
Right.
That's REMFs, rear echelon motherfuckers. That's people that involve. You know what I mean? But when I was in the Army, it was a kind of a thing of honor to have kind of worn out and kind of torn up equipment. It meant that you were battle hardened, right? Yeah. You weren't one of these guys that worked in an office or worked on a ship or something like that. So the whole spit shine thing, that sounds like Navy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Navy.
I should mention about the Son of Sam case is that in the whole legal arena, it's actually very famous because when David Berkowitz was caught, he was actually offered like large sums of money by various newspapers, book publishers, stuff like that for his story. So New York passed a law that you were not allowed, like serial killers or murderers were not allowed to financially benefit from stories told about them, and their families were not. Because they didn't want to, like, encourage, you know, somebody to, like, hey, I'm going to go out and kill them, then it'll take care of my family forever because I'll just sell my story to the National Enquirer. So they are allowed to tell their stories, but they cannot get any financial compensation for them, and neither can their families. This law has actually been challenged on free speech grounds, but they were actually able to pass it. I think it's the law in 41 states. I'm not sure. Like, I think each state has, like, different parameters of it and stuff. But generally, if you're a serial and a prison serial killer, you are not allowed to financially benefit from telling your story to like a newspaper or book publisher. They're not allowed to pay you. They can give it to charity or whatever, but they can't give it to you or your direct kin. So, and they call those the Son of Sam laws. That's why that took place, because there was so much money floating around, like people wanting Son of Sam to tell him their story. So that's how that went. All right, so I think we've gone on way, way long enough.
We can wrap this one up.
This was kind of rambling, like they all are. I know I say that every time.
It wasn't rambling. You did it right.
Always rambling.
It wasn't
all
rambling.
right. Yeah, well, honestly, it's like I'm going to edit it out, but I had to stop a whole bunch of times because I kept losing my place in the notes. Like you said, I do so much research and then I lose my place while I'm trying to. And plus I'm drinking, and I'm just kind of like, what the fuck, I can't.
This is a 70s style show. Just be drinking and smoking. Merv Griffin's with us and everything.
The elevator killer.
The elevator killer.
You guys will know.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Friday. No, not on this Friday. It'll be like a Friday after that. You'll know what we're talking about.
Don't worry about it, Jenny. Don't worry about it. Just shut it down.
Okay. All right. So we're going to wrap up the show about the Son of Sam. Hope you enjoyed it. And remember, if you like the show, to like, share, subscribe on all your social media. If you'd like to financially support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/13o'clock podcast. I promise in the new year, I'm going to start adding more shit and more perks like on the Patreon page. I'm really trying to do that. It's one of my resolutions. Also, if you don't like Patreon and would rather give a one-time donation, that would also be greatly appreciated. You can go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there's a link in the sidebar to a PayPal account. Remember our movie retrospectives, which are usually old movies. Those come out every Friday. We also have 13 o'clock matinee, which comes out every Sunday. Those are like new movies in the theater. And these episodes right here come out every Tuesday, so check them out if you haven't already. And we will wrap it up now. Episode 126. We will see you next time. Bye.